KREM 2 News begins now.
Hello, thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News Week in Review. I'm Tim Pham. In the next half hour, we'll get you caught up on some of the biggest stories in the Inland Northwest this past week.
We finally have an answer to the question on most Coug fans' minds after the transfer portal opened last week. Head coach Jake Dickert confirmed this morning John Mateer has played his last game in Pullman.
College football is in a different place than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, however we remember it. John will be the most sought-after player in the portal. I think he's going to be the best player in the country next year, and he informed us that he is, in fact, going to hit the portal.
Despite efforts by the university and outside contributors who put together a seven-figure deal to try to get him to stay, Mateer informed Dickert and his teammates Sunday night that he's grateful for the program, but will be moving on.
I'm disappointed. It's a tough result. Really thankful for Cougs everywhere that poured into everything that it took to try to keep him here. But at the end of the day, he wanted to play on a bigger stage, and I think that was the main cause of most of this.
The big thing is, they're your brothers, so, everyone's super close, and, at the end of the day, you always want the best for your friend, the best for your buddy. I'd imagine it's similar to, people in the workforce. When you talk to your coworkers and they're talking about potentially doing other things, it's you always want the best for them. You obviously want them to stay with you and, be friends, but at the end of the day, everyone does have to do what's best for them.
Mateer's exit is a huge blow for Washington State, but they're leaning on the guys they have left and gearing up to end their season on a high note in the upcoming Holiday Bowl.
This has been the most united locker room that I've been in through my 3 years here. Through all of our exit meetings, guys have really talked about that, and it's going to need to unite even more through this adversity.
Everyone knows we didn't go out the right way in Martin, and so this team really is carrying a chip on our shoulder that we got to send the seniors out the right way.
It's a hard line to walk in college football, being excited for what a team and a program can build while knowing it can all change drastically in a week's time.
You don't take the days for granted. You make every day count, and it's crazy because a lot of times you don't know what's going to happen. So you love the guy up next to you, and you try to come in with that hard hat mentality and bring your lunch pail. And tomorrow's not promised, and that's how it is. It could be an injury, it could be transfer, it could be something else, some sickness, and they're not there. So you just cherish the time you have with those guys.
As of right now, the Cougs are preparing for backup quarterback Zevi Eckhouse to start in the Holiday Bowl. From Pullman, Caitlin Galloway, KREM 2 Sports.
Obviously a stunning turn of events in Pullman as former Wake Forest head coach Dave Clawson officially stepped down just yesterday, and now the Dickert family has already arrived at Wake Forest.
Change has brought opportunity for Jake Dickert at another institution, but that leaves us an amazing opportunity for change here at Washington State University going forward.
Dickert and his family arrived in Winston-Salem earlier this afternoon. It marks the end of a tumultuous tenure in Pullman for Dickert, who led the Cougs to a 23-20 record, 2 Apple Cup victories, and 3 bowl games in 3.5 seasons as Cougar head coach. You may remember Dickert was named head coach following the firing of Nick Rolovich for his refusal to comply with Governor Inslee's vaccine mandate in 2020. Dickert helped guide the Cougs through losing 2 sets of coordinators and conference realignment. He also helped develop 2 star quarterbacks in Cam Ward and John Mateer, as well as several current NFL players. Dickert's departure now means the Cougs have lost their head coach, both coordinators, their running backs coach, and 22 players, including 10 starters so far this offseason. Despite all that, WSU is still a go for the Holiday Bowl next week.
We stood before a room full of motivated football student athletes who can't wait to get on the field against Syracuse and represent Washington State University and to finish what they started and to send those seniors off, with the bowl game that they deserve. And we're in. We're 100% in.
Pete Caligas has been named the interim head coach and will coach the Cougs in the upcoming Holiday Bowl on December 27th.
The men that are here, they deserve the best, and they deserve someone to stand in the gap, and let's go finish this thing the right way, the way we know how to finish it.
That was WSU interim head coach Pete Caligas speaking about leading the Cougar football program for the next 9 days heading into the Holiday Bowl. The main message from Caligas to the remaining Cougs is that this team needs to finish their season strong despite 24 players announcing intentions to enter the transfer portal as well as a decimated coaching staff. Still, Caligas was emotional today, speaking about his love for this group.
I know who we are. We're going to play this game, and I'm going to give you everything that I have in the next 9 days. That when you look back in 10 years, you'll go, wow, that was a very special time, and I didn't realize it, but how much I learned from the staff, from the week, because you care about these guys so much, and I just love them so much. I want them to have everything. I want them to have everything in the next 8 days.
As for the Cougar players, there was some surprise to Dickert's departure yesterday, but this team remains together heading into what will be the final football game for some.
You know, it's a chance to the last football game of my life, so I want to go down there, I want to play in this game, and I want to end my career with a victory with the Cougs.
The Cougs will practice again on Saturday before flying into San Diego on Monday afternoon to begin bowl week. As for the former Cougar head coach, he was officially introduced as the new head coach at Wake Forest this morning. Among many things, Dickert spoke about the lack of resources to keep players in Pullman and how he's looking forward to leading an ACC program.
I'm excited about how we're going to build this thing the right way and build a program that can sustain. And then when you get to that level, you got to be willing to invest in the players, right? And that was part of this process. We just didn't have the resource where I was at to take and keep and maintain our players. So to be here, I think, is really, really special.
Dickert also penned a note to Coug Nation, calling it a true honor to have been the WSU head coach.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us on KREM 2 Plus for your KREM 2 News Weekend Review. It's been a busy week here in the Inland Northwest. Let's get you caught up on some of the news you might have missed.
If passed, Washington would be the second state to have a .05 BAC limit. We reached out to a brewer who says that change would be detrimental to bars across the state. Co-owner of Natural 20 Brewing, Reese Carlson's owned the pub since 2017.
Actually, in the craft beer industry, the alcohol percentages are slightly higher than you'd find in like your typical canned or bottled beer.
He says he's keeping a close eye on state legislation aimed at combating DUI-related incidents. He says it's a topic his business always factors in.
Somebody were to hop in their car and hit someone or cause property damage, that actually does come back on us.
In 2023, the Washington Traffic Commission reports 810 traffic deaths in Washington state, with 400 of those involving an impaired driver.
If that's one person dies because of alcohol, that's unacceptable.
Washington State Senator John Lovick says he's been trying to pass legislation creating the new BAC limit to .05 for 3 years. He believes impaired driving deaths would go down and Washington roads would be safer.
People have just reached a level of fatigue because of drunk drivers, reckless drivers, and aggressive drivers.
Carlson says as a server, seeing someone at a .08 BAC is easier to spot than someone at a .05.
The signs of intoxication are so much lower that it makes it incredibly hard for us to judge, like, has this person actually had too much, or is this person just an overly social individual?
And in some cases, customers only over 180 pounds would be able to have a Pilsner at his business.
Anyone below that would not even be able to finish the single beer without being impaired.
A concern is Senator Lovick is confident Senate Bill 5067 will be successful.
If we get it to the floor for a vote, it's going to pass.
Carlson believes the issue can be a matter of what it costs.
The problem isn't necessarily like the legal line for drinking, it is the resources that people have for ways to get home in an affordable way.
As he worries about his and other businesses across the state, hoping a different solution can be made to solve drunk driving deaths.
There's a lot of facilities that are required to change that model, and I think we'd see a lot of businesses essentially just not exist anymore.
The Washington legislature is set to start on January 13th. Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News.
Just a few months ago, the Spirit Lake Police Department at one point had only one officer. Now, the department has 8 full-time officers and 3 in reserve. The police chief told me this afternoon, building up this force is filling a critical need to the department's daily operations. In the small town of Spirit Lake, snow is not the only thing building here.
So when we just had 1 or 2, the kids kind of get out of hand once in a while.
Terry Moore is talking about the lack of officers in Spirit Lake's police department this past year, but it's now built back up to a more manageable staffing level. In May last year, Chief Dennis Sanchez resigned. A few months later, a lieutenant resigned, leaving 7 open positions and no chief. The interim chief even left after 3 months. Chief Mike Moreland took the department's top job in August last year. He had only 1 officer and was determined to hire more.
We went through probably about 6-7 months where there were just 3 or 4 of us working 12 to 16-hour shifts.
Through assistance from the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and Rathdrum Police, Mayor Jeremy Copperthwaite says Spirit Lake was temporarily covered.
Crime did not increase because we were down, but it hurt.
He says Spirit Lake still needed more of its own officers to provide adequate coverage for the whole city. Chief Moreland says recruitment and retention proved to be a challenge.
When we're competing with other agencies, especially over in Washington, when you cross the state line, they're making as much as $10 more an hour.
But after working with the mayor and city council, Chief Moreland was able to increase entry-level salary by about $5 and bumped up lateral officer hires to a $27 an hour salary. Then the applications started coming in.
It put a smile on my face.
Now the department is operating with 8 officers, 4 of which are from the Inland Northwest. What it took to hire these officers was not lost on the community.
This happens every day. We're getting baked goods, people are giving us cards.
Now the chief isn't done building up the police department.
We'd like to have 10 officers. That way we can close the gap and go 24/7.
But residents like Terry,
I should have brought my snowblower.
are proud of how far the department has come.
Kind of a nice thing to have them,
In Spirit Lake, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
The attorney I spoke with says the case has a fact pattern similar to an incident from a decade ago. In that case, a jury found the defendant not guilty after shooting and killing someone during a car theft. Instead, they called it self-defense. 10 years ago, Gail Gerlach shot and killed someone in the process of stealing his SUV.
It went to a jury trial, and I didn't litigate that case, but the jury acquitted under the theory of self-defense.
Criminal defense attorney Timothy Note, who wasn't involved in that case or the current one from over the weekend, agreed to talk with us about Washington law and use of force. He says the 2 cases do appear to have similar circumstances. In the most recent case, the Spokane County Sheriff's Office says a Jeep was stolen near 9 Mile Falls around 8:40 p.m. on Friday night. Deputies say the Jeep's owner followed the suspect in another car and shot the man. Deputies interviewed and released the owner, but Note says that might not be the end of it.
The fact that they didn't arrest the shooter at that moment in time doesn't mean that this case is over.
Washington state law says a person will not be punished for protecting his or her property by any reasonable means necessary. While KREM 2 is not aware of any claims of self-defense in this case so far, Note says that could be a possibility as deputies continue to investigate.
If the fleeing thief turned the Jeep into a weapon, you can use a weapon to defend against a weapon.
Note also emphasizes cases like these take time before more information is found. KREM 2 spoke with Corporal Mark Gregory with the Sheriff's Office for more information. While he says he can't comment on an ongoing case, he did reference a Washington state law regarding use of force. Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News. I'm here at Marina 33, where a developer plans on adding more than 100 new boat slips. Tonight, Post Fall residents were able to voice their concerns about river traffic and the potential impacts to wildlife.
People have valid concerns, and I think they should be not just heard, but really considered.
Diana Sullivan lives in Riverside Harbor in Post Falls near Marina 33.
It's a community of homes that all have access to a private beach down there.
She says she enjoys where she lives, but sometimes speedboats can cause issues.
The water comes up and we're all you know, being tossed this way and that way, which is okay because, you know, we know that goes with living down there.
But what goes on down there may grow. 414 PF Hospitality LLC is submitting an application to the Idaho Department of Lands to grow the size of the marina. It would include adding 100 private areas for boats to dock, as well as relocating both the existing ship store and sheriff boat garage.
When asking for these things, what is it that we have to show? There's a burden of proof, and there is a standard by which that burden is met.
Scott Hislop is on the general counsel for Stancraft Companies and is applying for the expansion. He presented his application to residents living near the marina at a public hearing. Hislop says they filled out all the required permits and went through the needed regulations to make the proposal become a reality.
I just thought this is probably a done deal because they have met all the requirements of the Idaho laws.
Sullivan says she's not excited about the project if IDL approves it.
I just don't see how this can be a healthy thing for the river because it's just not wide enough and it's just not long enough.
Even though the applicants done their legwork.
We all appreciate capitalism, but sometimes other things need to be considered.
Anyone with questions or concerns about the project can reach out to IDL. They have until December 27th to do so. In Post Falls, Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura Papetti with KREM 2, wishing all of you a happy holiday. All of us at the station wanted to take time to say thank you for doing so much in the community this year and partnering with KREM Cares. You may not realize the impact you've had, so we wanted to take a few moments and share some good news.
You supported our schools with the KREM Cares Big Book Giveaway. Well over 2,000 books, opening minds and imaginations for our kids.
They're going to go home and say, I chose this book, read it to me, or I want to read this book because I chose it.
And the KREM Cares Diaper Drive kept thousands of babies warm, safe, and dry.
You'll have to choose between food or diapers, gas or diapers.
Diapers are just one avenue that really helps support a family in a time where they're incredibly vulnerable.
And we remember, we won't forget, from Christmas in July to our Holiday Treats to Troops campaign. Hundreds of our military members got a holiday package with Salute to Service.
Being separated from family and friends, but that package would be something that just reminds you that you're not forgotten.
And then you helped us celebrate 25 years of Tom's Turkey Drive.
For 25 years, your generosity has helped feed families and neighbors across the inland Northwest.
So on behalf of KREM 2 and KREM Cares, happy holidays.
For a Spokane-based company, a startup goal is now a reality.
To capture that CO2 and prevent it from entering the atmosphere. And then to repurpose that CO2, find ways to constructively use that CO2.
Carbon Quest started just 5 years ago, and co-founder Dave Curry says their job is crucial in the meantime while energy moves toward electric.
The challenge that the world is facing is the rate at which we're emitting CO2 into the atmosphere exceeds our ability to replace it with renewable sources. We just can't build enough renewables fast enough.
Carbon Quest works with industrial facilities and large buildings. They capture emissions, which are made up of 70% nitrogen, 20% water vapor, and 10% CO2.
And then we move into a process which separates the CO2 from the nitrogen and any other gases and oxygen that would be there.
Their technology liquefies that CO2 on site. Then they pick up the liquid.
The vehicle will drive up to the building, plug into the wall, extract the liquid CO2 cryogenically into a cryogenic tank in the back of a vehicle.
Finally, they inject that liquid CO2 into concrete, where it mineralizes and becomes a solid within that cement. A process that works exceptionally well in the Northwest, where our volcanic ground is full of basalt.
In the Pacific Northwest in particular, in Washington, Oregon, and into Canada, into British Columbia and Alberta, it's a gold mine of opportunities to do CO2 sequestration geologically.
Carbon Quest is working on its first project in Washington State at Eastern Washington University, where they will extract a few thousand tons of liquid CO2 per year from the campus. Dave says globally, recent technological advancements are driving the need for technology and, by default, energy.
AI is having an order of magnitude, a 10x impact on the amount of energy necessary to support computing functions.
So as energy usage goes up, Carbon Quest wants to be there to catch the CO2 emissions as they also inevitably increase.
The potential of the planet to sequester CO2 on a massive scale is infinite.
For Environment Northwest, I'm meteorologist Leah Pizzetti.
Thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News Weekend Review. For the most current news throughout the weekend, you can watch our latest newscast and weather forecast right here on KREM 2 Plus. Just look for the video in the bottom navigation menu. I'm Tim Pham. Thanks for watching.